Well, good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian,
Randy, how are you?
doing just fine. Busy with the bees today. It's
Yeah,
warmer here.
yeah. I live in these fine winter months. I live through folks like you and Bruce when Bruce puts videos up because I can't touch bees up here.
Mhm.
We are too cold.
Yes,
What's
So,
the weather like out there, Randy?
we are having a very unusual warm weather. I still have tomatoes on the vine,
oh,
which is
Wow.
I picked strawberries today. Normally we have had killing frost and snow by now, but yeah, last few
oh
years ago
my.
we had 2 feet of snow by now. So
Wow.
yeah, so unusual weather. So we're taking doing the best with it. Doing a bunch of bee work that I'm going to do some oxalic acid vaporizations and titration of the bees tomorrow. When it's warm enough for us to do that.
That's
Wow.
great.
Yeah. Ohio, we just have had nothing but bitter cold. So we have already as a low into to 5 degrees.
Wow.
So there's been several nights, several days, and Bruce he always just laughs. So Randy, we have a group text between Bruce, Greg, and myself, and you know Bruce will send his pictures in the middle of the winter, and it'll be 60 degrees, and
Where are
he'll
you
be
at, Bruce?
I'm in Southeast Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm about, when you came to the Alabama conference in Clanton, I'm about probably 2.5 hours south. I'm in the very corner of Alabama, very
Okay.
southeastern corner.
yeah, but up
So
here,
we're basically panhandle of Florida. We're just like the border, the line is probably 20 to 30 minutes south of me.
Okay.
And so all those commercial guys on the panhandle of Florida, I'm in a similar climate to them.
Okay. I'm looking at the green grass in your background photo here. During the summer, it all dries up here in California. Everything turns brown except for the trees and a few shrubs.
Yeah.
And if we get early rain, all the seeds germinate. Now, during the drought, we had like 15 years of drought. Some winters, none of the seeds germinated. So it went to the winter completely brown with nothing. This winter, we got a good soaking rain about 2, 3 weeks ago and germinated seeds. So now we have lush forage starting up. Now, those plants will go dormant when it gets cold, but they've got the head start now. So when it starts warming up in late winter, they'll start growing and it'll be very nice for spring buildup when we come back from the almonds.
nice.
Yeah.
I remember. I think uh, it's been a little while since we had you on a live stream, but I remember like to go back several months. It was when everybody the talk on the street, everybody was talking about the colony collapse and everything like that, and you were saying, oh, the colonies are rebounding. So, like, just to summarize, like what you after, oh gosh, after the colony collapse,
Uh-huh.
you throughout this year, did you continue to see like a rebound for
Yeah,
all of your colonies?
that was our big fear that the collapse in our operation was not what the collapse for most of the operations was from. Most of it was resistant mites resistant to amitraz. In our operation, it wasn't mites, it wasn't nosema, it wasn't pesticides. We could not put a finger on what it was, but
Hmm.
apparently, my guess is we had a virus variant that caused the bees to either self-sacrifice young or begin foraging very early, which thing like Nosema sereni will do that. So you don't see any bees dying, those down, and you don't see any foragers. So you can have a nectar flow on, but you got no pollen and nectar coming in because the bees are leaving or disappearing too early. So it's um, that's what classic CCD was back in the 2000s from Nosema sereni. Just the dwindling of bees. You wind up with a little cluster of bees with a queen in the middle and maybe some brood around there. But the adult population collapsing with no sign of disease in the brood. So totally independent of Varroa or deformed wing virus, anything like that.
Hmm.
So we didn't know. So in the same yards, we had some colonies side by side thriving, doing great, and other ones dwindling away despite feeding pollen stuff and sugar syrup. The question was, obviously we didn't breed off any sick colonies. We only breed off the ones that are thriving. Reclean our operation with them, and there was no sign of that this year. So there's a couple of things. One, you're going to have genetics. So some bees are genetically more resistant to the viruses. The other is transgenerational immune priming, where just like with mother's milk, with the colostrum, the nurse bees can pass on some of their acquired immunity to their sisters that they're rearing via the jelly. This is not well understood what's happening. So it could have been either of those things, but knock on wood right now, we did not see it happen this fall. Colonies built up normally. So I don't know. But it's another one of those mysteries that we'll probably never understand. But if you look back over the history of beekeeping, I mean, from the earliest records, every decade or so, you would have a plague where the bees mysteriously died. And people blame it on this, they blame it on that, and then it disappears. And nobody knows why. It could have been the dance you did or or whatever. But if you want to take credit for it. But this is just something that happens with bees.
Yeah. I got hit with loss. And I started the year just with single digits as far as colonies. And this year I said I was going to solely work on rebuilding my operation.
Yeah.
And I've got, and now I'm the small scale guy. I don't ever, my end goal is never to be a sideliner, never to be a commercial guy. I'm kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Bruce says I'm kind of like a closet sideliner. But I wanted to get up to in the teens as far as colonies.
Yeah.
And we got 16 strong colonies.
Yeah, that's a great
This year, like last year, we had problems with queen acceptance. There were just a number of different issues. And this year it was like everything kind of just, now it took effort by the beekeeper, of course, but everything was kind of like smooth sailing. The colonies built up exceptionally well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy.
Great.
So, yeah, it was a rebound here, but I think the colonies around here are in better shape than what they were if you look a year ago. Definitely they're in better shape.
And how are you managing your mites?
I've used in my operation. I've used Apivar before. I didn't use it this year. I kind of want to rotate through different treatments.
Yeah.
I've used Viroxan. Viroxan, from what I've seen, it didn't really give like that much of like the punch knockdown.
Mm-hmm.
It kept my levels where they were. They just
Right.
maintained. But it was fine because I used them later in the year, and that's where the mites, you're typically going to see your higher levels,
Right.
and my counts were low. So this year I mainly used oxalic acid, and my mite counts were good. I didn't have any mite counts. Oh gosh, what was my wash? 3 or 4 was my highest.
All right.
So, I mean, they were low. So
how are you applying the oxalic?
I've got one of the instant vapes,
Okay.
OAV. Yeah. So yeah, vaporization. Yeah,
That's what I'm analyzing right now. Is vaporization.
Mm.
I made a model. I like making computer models that you put in all the variables. How many days the mites are out in the quote phoretic phase,
Mm-hmm.
And then they enter. When they enter the brood, then they can't be exposed. What proportion of them are out? What the efficacy is the first 3 days. After 3 days, you have almost no mites dropping. Then I put a model of how often you repeat the vaporizations, and then you adjust the model to match what the hard data is. I got a bunch of mite drop data from people from around the world who have gone out every day and counted the number of mites on sticky boards. Trying to get that model to match that hard data is extremely frustrating unless I put in a very low efficacy rate, and then it matches the data. So we're actually going to go out tomorrow and do some titration. We just got some data from some guys in Canada. They're using a vaporizer that doesn't get above 190 degrees centigrade to avoid degradation of the oxalic acid.
Mm-hmm.
They are vaporizing every 3 days with 6 grams every 3 days.
Oh,
And
wow.
their mite counts, their mite drops are just steady. They're not dropping over time until the colonies go broodless. That's really, really surprising. If you're getting a 90% mortality and vaporizing every 3 days, for vaporizations, you should have almost no mites left in the hive. So see these guys. So that's what we're going to go out and test vaporizing at that lower temperature to see if that has something to do with it. But even ones where people are using the normal higher temperatures around 2°C, I'm still not seeing that step down of mite drops those first 3 days, and then your second round, what I'm expecting. So that means that it's something we're not understanding about vaporization.
Yeah. I know they just increased the dosage.
Right.
Just bumped it up, I saw, to the 4 grams. So,
Yeah.
you know, they're almost catching up to what beekeepers have been doing, though.
But the thing is, EPA is not concerned about efficacy. That's not part of the testing. So it's up to the manufacturer to do their efficacy testing. And the manufacturer was lagging on that. Beekeepers were way ahead of them. Cameron Jack finally published some research, which then the company then revised the label. It takes some money and time to revise a label. But as far as the EPA is concerned, you can register a treatment that does nothing to the mites, as long as it's not of unreasonable risk to man and the environment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bees are pretty tough. They can handle a lot of it. It's just, I guess they're concerned about that, like you said, Randy.
No, but the bees, EPA is not that concerned. They want to make sure it's not excessive harm to the bees. And that's the other surprising thing. The bees will survive it, but it does have an effect on the brood. Too high a dose can kill the bees. I've found that. But they can survive an extremely high dose. So the question is, you really don't want to put in more than you need to. So that's what I'm trying to, with my titrations and stuff, trying to figure out, how much you actually need.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm sure.
I'm glad there are science guys like you out there. I'm just trying to survive out here, but we really appreciate you. Brian is more scientific minded than I am. I would like to be, but it just takes a lot of organization. I'm lucky to keep my bee, keep them in the boxes and keep them treated the best I can. And
my sons run the operation, so I manage about 100 hives myself just for research projects, but they're running the big operation.
So you can really focus on the science behind it, and that's really cool. That's really cool. I had this year, as far as here in Alabama, I actually had my best year ever. My hives, my hives of bees, my colonies, I think they were healthier overall than they've ever been. They just seemed to be vibrant and healthy, and just really.
It's dry, and the goldenrod had not started really coming on yet, and the concern was that they weren't going to get enough of a fall nectar and pollen flow. Yours did okay?
Well, that's what's amazing. We had a drought down here. We had a really good spring. It was about right, and then now I'm trying to remember back, but it seems like somewhere in July, August timeframe, the faucet turned off and we had no rain. And so, of course, the concern was drought, no goldenrod, no fall flora around here. And I frankly didn't get in my hives much. What I did during that time frame, and down here in the South, we have brood year round pretty much. Down here we don't ever go completely broodless. Some of the Caucasian carniolan type bees will go low brood, but really most of mine aren't that category. And most of them kind of plow right through winter, it seems like sometimes. And so I treated them with Viroxan in March. Then again, after I pulled the honey, I treated them again with Viroxan, just thinking I would keep the mites down. I think I had them down pretty low last winter. And when I did some testing in, when was it? I think it was in August, maybe right at the beginning of that drought period. The mite counts were they weren't good at all. All of them had some mites in them pretty much. Some of them were, teens and 20s. 300 count, so what's that? It's more, it's 6-7%, whatever. And so I was like, man, the Viroxan, I was not very impressed with it at all. I don't think the dosage is strong enough in the Viroxan or something. So I went ahead and I just started hammering them hard with OAV.
Was it raining?
So, no, it was dry.
Okay.
It was dry.
When you're done, tell the story. Let's get back to that.
Sure. And so I hit them hard with OAV starting probably, I think it was probably mid-August, I believe. I can't remember exactly when it was, but I hit them hard. The first, I did 6 weeks. I just can't get in them every 3 days. I work full-time, so I have to hit them once a week. And I hit them once a week for 6 weeks. The first 3 weeks, I went 4 grams per box, which was 8 grams on the bigger colonies. And then the grams per box. I have around 120, 230 colonies. I've lost a few, but they were staying pretty steady. So I went back and tested after all that AV treating, and the numbers were still, it didn't do what I thought it would. I had some that were pretty high, and so I was really, it really didn't affect them. It didn't hammer them like I thought it would at all. They were. So I went ahead and just about 2 to 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago and about half of them, and 2 weeks ago, and the other half, I went ahead and it's starting to get cool here. It's not super cold, but it's getting a little cool. We've had some cold days, but I hit them with Formic Pro, and I'm going to go into them and see what the results are, hopefully this weekend. But I was very disappointed in in the past, I've hit them hard with OAV like that, and I've had some pretty good numbers at the end of it. It never seems to knock them all the way down, but when I hit them consistently like that over time with a lot of OAV, I've had good results, and this year it was not the case. Now, like we said, the weather was mostly dry. Now, the interesting thing you ask about the fall flora. So this whole entire time that I was treating with OAV, I wasn't getting in the bees. I was just going to hit them with OAV and leaving. The bees looked healthy, bees everywhere, really strong. I cracked a few lids and they looked really good. When I went back to apply the Formic Pro 2 and 3 weeks ago, the boxes were, especially in my southern colonies, which are a little bit south of town here, they were absolutely packed out, loaded with honey. So whatever that happened in the fall, there was a little bit of rain, I think maybe in August, and whatever that rain did, and then it dried back out. Whatever happened, I'm not sure. I think there was cotton in some of the areas, but mostly, they just packed it out, and the bees look extremely good. Even the ones that were full of mites were just extremely healthy looking bees, just vibrant, healthy. And I don't know if I've ever had them look this good as far as like food stores, everything. You've got in a double deep, you've got the bottom box has 4, 5, 6 frames of brood. You got the pollen, the honey, that dome from front to back and side to side, just looked like a perfect colony. And when I went to apply the Formic Pro in some of those colonies, I literally could not get the boxes apart. I hit the Hive tool, hammered it with my fist, crammed it, had to actually they're on pallets, had to take some of them and tip them forward and actually hit them from the top and pry them apart. They were so glued together. It was unbelievable. I've never had a hot colony I couldn't break apart before. So whatever happened in that 2 month period of time, for sure in my southern colonies, they were doing really well, minus the mite issues. And so I really don't know. A lot of the queens are young, healthy queens. I got some of the queens from Greg. He's doing a little study with some things. And then I got some queens out of Hawaii that I just love. And, but I'm really kind of stumped as far as the mites go, and I hope the Formic this late in the year was not an issue for me. The temperatures were actually, when I applied it, pretty darn good for it. It was in that, I think the first week the temperatures were in the upper 70s, around pushing 80. The second week the temperatures were 50s and 60s, and so we'll see what happens. I just had to get something in there. I kind of freaked out about it a little bit.
So how many total vaporizations did you do a week apart?
I did 6.
6, okay.
6, yeah, 6 weeks. The first 3 weeks, like I said, was 4 grams per box, meaning 8 grams on the 2 double deeps and deep and mediums, and then 4 grams on the singles. And then the last 3 weeks, I just hit them with 4 grams per hive, per colony. just all of them. And so that's what I did.
I usually, when I do my OAV treatments, I'll usually do, now I run singles. I gave up running double deeps a couple years ago. It's just, I hate lifting deeps. So, but with my singles, I do the 4 gram. And when I do my OAV treatments, I'll typically hit them with a 4 gram dose about every 5 days. And I'll do 5 or 6 treatments. It just kind of depends on, timing of the year and different things like that. But at least 5. If I can sneak a 6th treatment in, I will, just so that I'm covering, an entire brood cycle plus.
Yeah.
So, and that's worked for me. I mean, the 4 gram every 5 days or so, I think it's been 2 or so years that I've been doing that. And I mean, my mite levels have been controlled. I haven't had anything that's been like really out of whack as far as mite levels when I've done washes.
Great.
So, yeah.
So Randy, what do you think?
It's just not making sense when I try to model it. When the research showing that if the colony is broodless, so now you've eliminated that variable of mites hiding in the brood, and even lower dose with even 2.5 grams per brood chamber, you can get 98% efficacy of killing the mites. But when I put that in the model, it doesn't work. The mice just disappear after a couple of treatments. And in real life, that doesn't happen. It takes what you guys experience is 5, 6, 8 replicates. Typically is what it takes to really get the mites down. So I'm up at 4:30 in the morning after morning, working on this model for a few hours before any of the phone calls start, and I just just can't make it worse. That's the beauty of the scientific bend, is you want to try to understand what's happening, and sometimes it's really frustrating trying to figure it out. So we have a lot of unknowns.
What frustrates me is that things that, and I have, to be honest, for the first, I've been doing bees now for 12 years. For the first few years, I didn't know really even, I didn't even know to I would just do, at first I didn't do really any consistent treatments at all. I had my commercial mentor just gave me some off-label stuff. Yeah. And I put it in there, and then I would use oxalic acid vapor sometimes, and I have no idea what my mite counts really were, but somehow bees survived all the way through the whole thing. Then I became more aware, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, of the IPM. You need to test and treat and try different things. And I've had some pretty decent success. I've always had some healthy bees. I've lost quite a few at times, but I've always had some really nice colonies, even when I was probably doing everything I could to kill them. Yeah. But it seems to me like things that have worked in the past, at least I thought they were working, as I actually assess and look at the mite loads, the bees look pretty good, but the mite loads don't look good, if that makes sense in some cases. And so I don't know. One of the experiments Greg's doing now, and he'll have to explain it in more detail, is something to do with resistance of the bees to the actual viruses that the mites are bringing. And I'm just amazed at how healthy some of these bees look that have a mite load that's above threshold. And so it really is amazing. But it gets frustrating to me when I try. This year I thought, because Ian talks about, I think you mentioned it as well probably in the past, and I've watched and listened to so many things, that how important it is coming into the new year to have the mite counts as close to 0 as possible, because they do explode as the year progresses. And Ian actually uses your model to figure out that, you got that model, you can plug the numbers in.
Oh yeah.
And so I hit. This is the first year I've really tried to attack them early in the spring. Normally I'm doing splits and it gets away from me, and it's like middle of summer before I can treat. I treat pretty good going through, late summer, fall into winter, and then when the spring hits, I'm so busy. But this year I really tried, but I used the Viroxan. I thought it would keep them down. I knew it wasn't really a knockdown treatment, and I'm sure they weren't as bad as they would have been, but it didn't really knock them down. And this summer I tried it again. and here I am with these mite counts that hopefully the formic's taking care of. But
Yeah.
so it just really frustrates me. I don't know what to do. I hope the formic has worked. I know that there are some knockdown treatments. What I found is, even though people have told me this for years, maybe I didn't believe them, or maybe I've seen different results. But the OAV is not as much of a knockdown treatment as is a more of a maintenance treatment. At least the vaporized vapor. I know that you have the pads that you put in there with the towels with the oxalic acid. I haven't tried that yet. I may try it this coming year. But I know that I don't know if is that a knockdown or more of a maintenance treatment, Randy? What have you found with the towels?
It depends. In yards that don't have, and I don't know what, there's very strong correlation. So, correlation and causality. We had 3 or 4 yards that were totally isolated for one reason or other. No other honeybees around, either due to elevation or due to isolation in a valley. And in those, it would take mite counts of 60 or 70 down to 0. Very, very effectively during the late summer.
Wow.
In other yards, not as much. So it makes me wonder, when I'm measuring mite drift into colonies, I rarely can find much mite drift. Even when I'm putting other collapsing colonies intentionally immediately adjacent to the ones that I'm monitoring the mite immigration into, I'm just not seeing the high numbers of that. So that's another mystery to me, is how maybe that small influx of mites coming in makes a difference with the extended release. So still a lot to learn. But I found now we notice an unusual spike in acid levels on the bees with Viroxan here during the summer. We couldn't figure out why. And then I remembered, wow, it rained the night before that. So I plotted out the acid levels that we were measuring on the bees' bodies while we were treating, and they exactly followed the humidity, ambient humidity outside. So I've now been doing experiments I started with Viroxan strips. You can use a saturated salt solution. Every saturated salt solution. So if you put some water in a pan or a jar and add table salt to it and stir it, it will dissolve. Eventually it will stop dissolving, and you'll have crystals that just sit there, will never dissolve. That's called a saturated solution. Every type of salt has an equilibrium relative humidity at any temperature with that saturated salt solution. If the humidity goes above it, then the salt solution will suck that water in and dissolve more salt. If the humidity drops below that, water will evaporate from that salt solution. So if you take a jar and put a small layer of saturated salt at the bottom with crystals in it, you will hold specific relative humidity at any temperature. So I can control the temperature of the incubator. So I use 4 different salts to have relative humidities from 50% up to almost 80%. I get to 78%. So that's within the normal humidity range within a beehive. And then I can hang strips of the oxalic strips, whether it's Viroxan or other ones, over a toothpick or over a chopstick, over a beaker inside that jar, and seal the top of the jar up with plastic film. And if the strips absorb water and the acid drips out the bottom, I can then take that beaker out underneath and titrate how much acid dripped out. So now I've collected data on how much acid drips out of these strips. And with Viroxan at high humidity, in a few days, most of the acid can drip out of the strip.
Wow.
So you can spike acidity on the bees, but then if you taste the strips afterwards, there's no acid taste. It's all dripped out. So it's the only place any acid left is a little bit of the wet spot at the bottom of the strip. So I did talk. I know the rep for Viroxan, and he said, "Oh yeah, they're aware of that now." Now, what's interesting, I tested some other strips too, and I've tested both the type of strip, type of cellulose, and also the ratio of oxalic acid to glycerin in the strip. The more glycerin, so we use a 1-to-1 ratio. Argentina they use a 1 to 2.5 ratio, 2.5 times as much glycerin as oxalic. In New Zealand, they use a 1 to 1.5 ratio. So I tried all those ratios and found out the higher glycerin ratios are a problem at high humidities. You get too much drip out. But then I've also tried, there's another guy who's in the process of registering another strip similar to Viroxan. He uses a different cellulose, and his don't drip. So, yeah, very, very interesting.
Is that the Canadian strips, or is that a whole different strip?
Yeah, that's
Canadian ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I know Bob Benny used the Canadian strips, and they also have more oxalic acid per strip, don't they?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what I guess the theory or the thought process would be then, and this actually makes a lot of sense because here in Alabama, obviously it's very humid. And so if it's very humid here, it could have caused issues with the strips not lasting, their efficacy not lasting as long as they're supposed to. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and what we do is we taste. So we just take our finger and touch the strip or touch the pad, taste it to our tongue. If it tastes like strong, tastes like lemon juice, we know it's giving off acidity to the bees. If you touch it and there's no taste, it's not doing anything.
Wow. So
that's the easiest way to tell.
So when you test the bees after it's humid and they have an increased amount of acid, you feel like the acid's kind of dripping on the bees. And so initially,
yes, is that the bottom of the strips there's actually dripping happening, and it may only be now. We do bee by bee titrations. Then we also do half cup of bees titrations. So the half cup of bee titrations give you an average, but one drip on one bee would be enough to take the whole average off because there's such a high amount of acid getting onto a single bee. Well, getting it onto a single bee is not going to kill very many mites because it's only that one bee. So what we got to do now is go back, and that's what we're doing tomorrow. We're going to go out and do a bunch of individual bee, like we'll pick 20 bees off a comb and titrate every single bee of those 20. And then you see what the actual distribution is.
Wow. So the mechanism of, I guess the way that it works, the mechanism of delivery to the bees is the acid. As the bees walk across the strips, the acid gets on the bees, or as they pick at them trying to pull them out, and then the acid on the bodies of the bees actually kill the mites. Is that kind of the theory of what happens?
When the bees walk over it, they only get it on their feet somehow, and that initially does not kill mites. So I've done cage trials in the incubator where I've let the bees walk across a fresh strip. I've titrated the bees, and they have a high amount of acidity, but it's only on their feet. And I use bees from a very high mite hive. So then I put them in cages inside the incubator and wait for a few days to see how many mites die. Well, even though those bees had a very high acid level to start with on their feet, it didn't kill the mites. So we're still not really clear on just how exactly it distributes around in the hive.
Now, from what I understand, and I might be wrong, Randy, but I think one of the reasons we rarely see mites on the bees is because many times the mites are hidden
most of the time
in the cracks and crevices, and even on the belly of the bees. So
on the left-hand side of the belly.
On the left-hand side of the belly?
Yeah. And
why the left-hand side, do you think?
That is one of the big mysteries.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that.
Researchers, yes. None of us have figured out why the left-hand side.
That's crazy. So I guess is it possible that since the belly is close to the feet, that might be one reason that it might have an effect? Of course, you said you did the test study though, and it didn't really.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so
I don't know what you think.
The bees then walking over one another.
Okay, there you
go. And there's other things involved too. We've also done bioassays where I take a group of bees, split it into two. One, I put a little bit of oxalic acid on their bodies, wait for a few hours, and then I take those bees and I put them into a device that I can drop 100 live mites in the middle of. And they have a choice of going one direction or another. And I put an airstream on to pull air over those bees. So the air is coming in either side through a grate that the mites can walk through, but the bees can't, and then sucks out there. So now the mites are exposed to two different airflows, one over the bees that have had an acid on them and one that not. the majority choose to walk to the bees that have not had acid on them. Now, the mites don't smell acid at all. They don't avoid acid in any way. They don't avoid the glycerin. But if you put acid on a bee's body, apparently the reaction with the chitin that's on the bee's skin creates some chemical that the mites find repellent. So that may be part of what's actually happening with the extended release, that it may not be necessarily a kill, because when I track mite drop and mite infestation rate, when you put on the extended release, there's a lot, the mite drop increases for the first month. And what would you expect to happen with the mite infestation rate, the number of mites that are on the bees?
Expected to decrease.
Yeah, that'd be the total reasonable expectation. That's not what happens. It increases.
Well, I think that may be the case in my hives because I still have mites, so that that explains a lot.
Population is going down, but there's fewer mites in the brood. So this is another avenue of research that I've got plenty of good preliminary data to try to figure out what the hell is happening with this.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Way smarter than me.
Yeah. There's a good question.
It's smarter. It's the perseverance.
I think and the focus, being able to focus on it and ask the questions that you ask, like, here's the problem. How can we figure out what's going on and figure out now how can we figure out how much acid's on the bees? How can we figure out, all the different things? And I guess you just kind of chase the different data, chase the different things that you see until you get to some sort of a explanation.
Right. So what happens is I am in the dream life right now. I get enough donations that I can hire an assistant, Rose, pays for my equipment. I don't make any money at doing this, but I don't need to. I'm retired officially now, working more hours than I've ever worked. But now I just do what I want to do. But it's not an out-of-pocket cost for me, so I can spend my time doing all the experiments. And what happens is I ask the donors, hey, what are you interested in? What issues do you have? And I get a lot of feedback from that. And then I direct my research to try to answer the questions that beekeepers have.
Yeah, there's a comment here from DC. He says, I thought I saw a study they were looking at that the that the oxalic acid burns the mites' feet. I've heard that as well. Is that the same mechanism of damage to the mites theoretically with the extended release as it is with the acid vapor?
That would be the most reasonable thing to expect. That's where the mites are most susceptible. If you mix glycerin with the oxalic acid, if it gets on the mite's carapace on their back, it will penetrate it. Whereas straight oxalic acid won't penetrate. So the glycerin acts to help as a penetrant. But the most susceptible part of the mite would clearly be the feet. So that's one of those reasonable explanations that nobody's ever checked. But because it sounds so reasonable, everybody repeats that.
Okay.
So I have reason to doubt that, but I've never seen any hard evidence. It's what I would expect, but I haven't seen hard evidence that I can say that is actually what happens.
There's probably a lot of those things in beekeeping
there are so
where
many
we believe this, or a lot of myths out there, or things that are not necessarily fact,
right?
That have been told forever.
Total sense to you. You're probably wrong 50% of the time. The honeybees. It's just amazing. The easiest person
probably
in the world for you to fool is yourself, because you go, oh, that makes sense. End of discussion. So we want to challenge just because it makes sense. No, unless I got hard data, I will not repeat something like that.
There's a lot of that out there in the world today, not just in beekeeping, where trust the data or trust the, that makes sense, so we're going to trust it, and it has created all kinds of problems in this world today.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I had a question for you, Randy. Historically, I've used a lot of, Apivar has always been. A lot of people cringe when you use that word. They say, the amitraz and mites are no longer resistant to, or no longer susceptible to amitraz. But I've had, overall, of all the treatments I've ever used, I've had really good success probably with Apigard. I've used it a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But But second, I would say would be the Apivar type treatments. It is absolutely effective, and people say, the mites are resistant to it, but I have not seen that to be the case. Last year, I had Auburn University came down here and did a study on some of my bees, and they took 10 samples, and they did a study. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the study. You might be, where they do a wash. They do a standard wash, basically 300 bees or whatever, half a cup, and they wash the bees, and they let them settle there for a while, and then they actually count the mites, count the bees, and what they do is they put them in a how do they do this? Hold on a second. I think they actually put the bees live initially. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly how they do it, but they have a little strip, like they cut a little section, like a 1 by 1 inch square.
Pettis test.
Yeah, and they put it in there, and they let the bees walk around, and they check, and they look at the mites, and they see how many mites have dropped, whatever they do. But my bees did not. They were the mites. My mites, I say, I'm pretty good at raising mites, were not resistant overall to the Amitraz. They actually, it killed them like crazy, huge percentage of them. And I had a significant problem when they came down. And so I went ahead and used Apivar last summer in 2024. Had pretty good success, but there were some outliers. Some of when I went back to test, I had, most of them were 0s, 1s, and 2s in the washes. But then there were those that were, I had one that was, I've never seen anything over like a 20 or 30 before. I had one that was like 75 and one that was 60. And so I freaked out, and I treated them with Apigard, OAV, kind of a mix. Anyway, I just went crazy on them, and I got the mites counts down again. But what are your thoughts? I've also heard recently that if it's important to have an IPM, so you go away from Amitraz products for a while, you come back to them, and the mites tend to lose that resistance. They theoretically, it becomes more effective again. Do you believe that's true, or have you had any experience with that? What do you think about that?
That's one of those good examples of what makes sense. So it depends upon the fitness cost. So if there's in order to gain resistance, you got to change your genetics somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of those changes also come at a cost to the parasite or to the pest. So back when we had fluvalinate, the apistan strips, the mites that survived that, or that survived it, that they were resistant to it, they did not reproduce as fast. So you could use that treatment, and mites are pretty easy to control because they didn't reproduce very fast. But then when you eventually get 100% resistant mites, then the treatment would not work anymore. When you stop using fluvalinate, then slowly, because of that fitness cost, the non-resistant mites slowly outcompete the resistant ones, and the resistant ones disappear from the population. With fluvalinate, it takes about 7-8 years, something like that, and then it can become an efficacious treatment again because there was a cost for resistance. Now,
that's interesting.
Humifos, that was a miracle treatment. Boy, that was even better than Amitraz. Man, it just knocked out the mites. Within 3 years, though, the only mites left, because it was such an efficacious treatment, were resistant mites, but without a fitness cost. So that resistance to Humifos is now fixed into the mice genomes. If you don't use, in countries where they haven't used any Humifos for 10 or more years, the mites are still resistant to it. That means the beekeepers just really shot themselves in the foot. They had the miracle drug that if they would have used it once every few years, they would have just cleaned all the mites out of their hives. Amitraz, I expected, would follow either Humifos or fluvalinate. So I've never used Amitraz in my operation. Gave up back in 2001 on it. And to my surprise, there's apparently such a high fitness cost that it's taken 20 years to get high levels of resistant mites. But that's because many commercial guys, they're using Amitraz 5 to 10 times a year and nothing else in rotation. So that means the only mice that survive are those that exhibit resistance. There's a common misconception with resistance, and you'll hear people say this: "Oh, well, if you leave the strips in or you give them a low dose of it, that will lead to more resistance." That's nonsense, absolute nonsense. If you want to get resistance, do a 99% kill, because now all that's left is the 1% that are resistant. Putting in a low dose that doesn't kill them all, that's fine. That does not lead to resistance. They can get along just fine at half the reproductive rate. But a very efficacious dose. So when you get a really good miticide that's high efficacy, you do not want to use it without rotation. Maybe use it once a year at most.
Okay, that's great to know. And I talked to the Foxhound Bee Company in Irondale up here by Birmingham. They had a grand opening of their new facility a couple of weeks ago, and the Vito Pharma rep was there. Amanda, I think is her name, and
yeah,
we talked extensively. And I think they got the Apivar 2.0 that's out now. It supposedly has a higher kill initially, and then it kind of the standard Apivar was more delayed.
Right.
Anyway, I talked to her about it. I know that there are a lot of people probably in the chat tonight, and I know a lot of people are strictly organic beekeepers. They don't want to put any of that stuff in their hives. But I've heard Bob Benny talk about and this is kind of a different angle, the issues or the dangers of using actual chemicals in your colonies that are not organic, particularly the two that you mentioned earlier, the Apistan and the Coumaphos.
Yeah.
I know that there is a danger with a comb buildup with those particularly, I've heard.
Very much.
And they have a reaction with, I can't remember what it is, but if you combine them in the colonies, it even exacerbates it even more from my understanding. And so
synergy.
And so, but I have heard, and I might be wrong, that the Apivar is a much less toxic. It does not build up in the comb. I mean, there are people in here that would disagree with me, and you may disagree. It may be true that
it does build up in the comb. It's in the honey, and the honey packers are watching this in the love line.
They're watching for Apivar.
Has been going up in the honey. The amatraz itself doesn't, but it's not amatraz that kills the mites. Amatraz is a dimer. That means there's two identical molecules linked together like this.
Okay.
When they get into the bee, they come apart, and it's the individual molecules that actually kill the mite. Those are the ones that wind up in the honey and in the wax. So the company can say, "Oh no, there's no amatraz contamination. Contamination by the metabolite of it, which is the active ingredient."
Interesting.
So that's why I'm just trying to kind of figure this out. But kind of back, and I want to kind of follow up, finish up with the Amatraz / Apivar and the chemical, and then maybe go back to organics a little bit. But so, I think I'm going to go ahead and try probably the Apivar, maybe 2.0 next summer or sometime next year, maybe even this winter, and see. It's really been so effective for me. And there's a commercial beekeeper not far from here. We did a chat a few months ago and asked him what his mite control was, and he says, "Well, I keep him on a Amatraz drip, IV drip," and so that's kind of what they do. They just always keep it in there. A lot of these commercial guys, but I have never done that. I've used it kind of.
That's what leads to resistance.
Yeah, I've kind of done it with like an IPM, and I do try the different things. I've done more of that since I've learned these principles, but. So I for folks in the chat, I am not 100% organic, although I have been this year. I've gone 100% organic, and I've had more mite problems than I have previously when I've used that far. So
for us, it was a learning curve. Nowadays, like I said, we've never used Amatraz.
Sure.
We haven't used any synthetics since 2001. I'm not saying it was easy the first 2 years. It was definitely a learning curve until we figured out how to do it, and mites really aren't that much of an issue anymore.
So that was kind of my next question. For those who, and I'm not opposed to just going full on organic. I just think it's not bad to have all the tools in my toolbox. But what is your? I mean, I know probably your biggest mite strategy from hearing you and Brian talk previously and from our previous chat is, just basically breeding stronger bees. I know you say. I think I heard you say, if I'm not mistaken, that you have a hard time sometimes finding hives that have enough mites in them to test, and so that's a good problem to have, if you're a researcher. But so kind of what maybe recommendations for folks that are listening in. That what kind of is your recommendation to you have the new beekeepers, the people you're teaching out there from your research? What kind of would be your recommendation for mite control? And what are your thoughts on these little boogers called mites?
Well, if you just go to my first year of beekeeping webpage, it discusses these, and I've got some graphics showing which treatments of the organic treatments are most appropriate at which time of the season. So, like, you don't want to use, you're using formic acid right now, but you may get queen loss then, and if you kill the queen right now, she's not going to get, the new queen's not going to get mated. So that's an issue. Now, formic acid would be very appropriate to use before swarm season, because you wouldn't worry about the brood breaks. You're going to get a brood break about 4 or 5 days also with formic acid. The thymol, it works best in hot weather. So that's if you have a late summer period where you don't have any honey coming in, that's optimum putting thymol in. While the honey flow is on, formic acid or extended release oxalic acid or even vaporization work very well when your honey supers are on to keep the mites from building up. Hop guard is really good when during broodless periods. So you have options, and it depends upon where you live and when your flows are, whether you're going to almond pollination or not. And the big decision also is your market, whether it's you making your own honey or who you're selling to. We have a market for our beeswax and for our honey from people who prefer honey and wax coming from, they're using the wax for lip balm and all that, that don't want to contaminate it with miticides. So because of our market, yeah, it's worth it to us to produce that. If you can sell all the honey you want to sell and nobody's asking you about it, then that the EPA is saying it's okay to use the Amtraz.
Yeah, I've never, I've done oxalic acid stuff and with honey on, but I never ever, everything else comes out, before, besides oxalic acid, I've never used anything else with honey supers on. I've always been hesitant here in Alabama where it's so hot to use the formic. I used it this time, and I talked to Greg about it, Greg Burns about it. The thought was, with the mite problems I was having, if we do have queen issues, we can combine those colonies. I just feel like I need to get the mites down, and I want to come out of winter with clean bees because it just explodes so fast.
Formic can give you a very quick knockdown.
But the problem, I'm worried about the queens, but the temperatures have not been real hot. We've been kind of chilly, and we've been at the highs have been where formic is okay, but we haven't been at the upper end of that for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I've kind of dominated the conversation here. Brian, go ahead.
No, that's all right.
We had a choice.
Talking
of your choices, if you didn't get the mice down, you'd have a bunch of dead colonies. You already know that.
That's right. Yeah.
So when you're facing that choice, you use what you can use to get them down.
Mm-hmm.
I see a question there. Yeah, I will actually be testing Noroa. I spoke with a friend who has been testing it for 10 years for the company, a large commercial beekeeper, lives out here. And he says, it does, what it does, it doesn't kill any mites, but it will prevent one generation of mites from reproducing, from being able to make eggs. So especially starting off in the springtime, he found it works really well in the springtime to start out clean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had looked at that, but timing wise, by the time it was released in the fall, timing wise here in Northeast Ohio, I wasn't going to put on any type of a feed packet in colonies at that time of the year because we were already dipping down close to 32. And I'm like, I'm not going to put on any type of a packet, that has any type of moisture when it's going to get below 32 degrees. So timing wise up here, I think for the Noroa, there's going to be just a short window when you're probably going to be able to effectively use it.
Well, the best window would be first thing in the spring, or when they start to build up. To get that, the lower you can get your mite count at the beginning of the season, the easier mite control is for the rest of the year.
Yeah. There was, Bruce, thank you. There was a good question here from Todd. he says, Randy, we know that viruses are internal. OAV can only help so much. What is being done to combat the viruses internally? Is there anything going on that you know of research-wise that's targeting a specific virus?
Yeah, I'm actually involved in some. I've got 65 cages of bees in the incubator right now involved in that. So yeah, there are some people working with a double-stranded RNA, which is what you're doing. You're taking the natural way that the bees fight viruses. Mm-hmm. What they do is they take a piece of the these are all single-stranded RNA viruses. Most of the bee viruses are single-stranded RNA viruses. When they replicate, they've got to make a double strand. So you have one RNA strand. They have to make a mirror reverse strand that sticks to it in order to replicate. The body of the bees, the immune system, recognizes that and says, oh, no. Then they have an enzyme called dicer that grabs this, it goes chop, 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 and chops it up into 21 base pair sections, rips off that negative strand, and another enzyme called Argonaut grabs that negative strand. Any more virus that tries to replicate in there gets grabbed by that Argonaut and ripped apart. So that's the way the bees fight viruses. Now, humans, we make antibodies, but insects do not make antibodies. So the way that humans fight viruses is entirely different than the way that honeybees fight it. So we're rejuvenating some work from back we did with Biologics back 2008, and that's been rejuvenated. And there's other groups also. Another researcher I know at USDA, he's working using microparticles to develop something against viruses. So there's a number of people who are looking internally. And another point that you made about some colonies with high mite levels that seem to do fine. We noticed this with the Russian bees when we kept those, that you can have some that have incredibly high mite levels and no sign of deformed wing going on. So those would be mite tolerant bees. So mite tolerance and mite resistance are two entirely different things. So we had to make a decision. Should we breed for mite tolerance or should we breed for mite resistance? Well, if you breed for mite resistance, viruses are a non-issue because you don't have mites in the hive. Mm-hmm. If you breed for mite tolerance, then they may be resistant to certain viruses if they can handle the mites better. So one of the things that honeybees do is they can endogenize a piece of the virus genome into their own DNA. A researcher called Al Mowry published a paper on this, and that gives them a target to go with. So much of your own genome, your human genome, is from viruses that have endogenized virus sequences. And the question was why they do that. It could very well be that we do the same thing. That's a library in our own genome of viruses that we've been exposed to over the last million years, mm-hmm. that give a reference for our immune systems. That's a possibility that this is what the bees are also doing.
So interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, a lot of that is that's just above.
Yeah, that's amazing. So fascinating.
Yeah,
sure is.
Yeah, I'm watching the time. I want to keep my eye on the time. That way, we stick to the time schedule here. Okay. We got one other question here from somebody that has your bees. So,
this one. Yeah, that's one. Our feedback on our bees is three. We get three feedbacks. One, they're extremely gentle. People like that a lot. Two, they build up really, really fast because we breed for almond pollination. And three, there is a high proportion of mite resistance in them. We don't claim mite resistance yet, but generally a good proportion of them are resistant to it. So with that fast buildup, yeah, if you don't give them space, they may swarm or split them. Yeah, that if you find swarm cells, it's too late to pull anything out. You split them right then. So just split them with those swarm cells and let them mate out. the thing now you're stuck with the marriage problem. Okay, and that is when the spouse says, "I thought this was going to be a hobby. You're splitting all the hives. There's no room in the backyard anymore." After you split them, once the honey flow begins, put them back together. Just combine them. Don't even look for the queens. Just put one on top of the other. And now you have a super colony. It's like a 2-queen system, but you're not trying to save both queens. You're putting together 2 brood nests. You have this massive forage force, and you'll make a ton of honey from that combined hive. So you can avoid swarming by splitting, but then recombine once the honey flow starts.
That's a good, in all the years, I've been, 2026 will be my 10th year. I never thought about doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that field force is so important for honey too. You just double the field force and you're going to maximize
the larger the colony, the more efficient they are at making honey. So there's more honey from one really strong colony than from 2 medium strength hives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next
year, my end goal is I want to stay around 15 production colonies.
Yeah.
And if I have any dead outs over the winter, I'm going to replace those with splits, of course. And then I'm going to set up, I've got a couple of those resource colonies, the double nukes.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 of those where I'm just going to set 4, colonies off to the side. That way I've got 4 extra queens. I've got brood that I can pull, gives me a little bit of play with my production colonies. But any of the colonies that I do not really have to split because, I want to maintain a certain number, next year I'm going to get into messing around with some demarays.
Mm-hmm.
So just because I want that honey crop, I'm not, in my operation, I'm not interested in selling bees. I do markets, so I want to sell honey.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, that field force, that'll be it. Because if I can maintain...
It's similar to a demoray, but with much less work. Because you're simply going over another box, and then you just put it back on when the honey flow starts. So none of all the extra labor involved with the demoray.
Yeah. Huh. The Randy Oliver method.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Awesome. Well,
Randy, I have a question for you regarding your queens. Is there I know you sell some queens. What's the process of getting a hold of those? Is that something anybody could have, or do you have to kind of get in line?
Ray Oliveras Honeybees, is a major queen producer. You're a longtime friend, and he brokers bees for us into the almonds. And they asked about, they have to shake a lot of bulk bees to fill their packages. So they were asking us if they could, shake bees out of our colonies than the almonds, and found out they got more bees shaken out of our hives than from any other hives. So he asked us if he could produce them, not for their mite resistance, not for their gentleness, but because they're so damn productive on producing bees. So, and it was premature for me because I was going to wait until we actually could claim full mite resistance. But I said, well, go ahead, but you can't claim mite resistance, but you can sell them. So they have been doing that, and the feedback has been pretty incredible. So they're gearing up big time. My son Eric just went out and did mite wash on 1,400 hives of rays in order just to choose the drone mother colonies. Which colonies are going to go down, not the breeders, but just the best ones that are mite resistant, just to be the drone mothers. So, and then Ray has a huge isolated mating yard that we can area that we can control all the matings there. So Ray is producing them. Better order early.
How do we get a hold of him?
Oliveras Honeybees.
Oliver, okay, so same guy. Okay, yeah. Oliveras Honeybees. I've heard of him.
It's Golden West Bees. GW Bees is our bees.
Okay.
Golden West.
So we would, if we order from him, there's a good chance that they have your genetics in them. Is that correct?
If you order GW bees, they are kept isolated from everything else. So they are They are our pure genetics. That's what
Okay.
I did with him. You know,
We order them.
if
Order-
we control the genetics.
Order them through Oliveris, but it's the Golden West bees. Okay. Good deal. Good stuff.
Yeah, but do it soon. He's
Yeah, I may try and order some. Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Okay. Sounds great.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well-
I'm not doing this to sell my queens. I'm doing this as a demonstration project to show the other queen producers how to realistically do a selective breeding program for the least amount of cost.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm publishing it all the details. It's been in the American Bee Journal. They'll be on my website soon. I got to wait 2 months after I publish them. The last one that's going out this next month tells you exactly how you, as a beekeeper, can do it if you want to get into a breeding program of your own. Now, realistically, Brian, you don't have enough colonies to do that.
Yeah.
Bruce, you're just barely there. When you have 500 to 1,000 colonies, you actually can control the breeding population. But I'm detailing all the tricks and tips that we've learned over all these years of doing this to encourage everybody to do this. I like to, before I die, I like to think of Varroa not even being a talking point anymore. That we're all just keeping bees that are naturally resistant. Not just my stock, there's other stocks too, but everybody's going to have to start adopting those stocks, and the market follows the demand. What the consumer asks for. When the consumer starts demanding resistance, all the breeders or queen producers are going to start changing, and they're going to start responding to consumer demand. So that is just, we're at a tip point right now. We're starting to get the pole line, my line, some of the other guys who are doing resistant stock. When people see that they are actually available, they're going to start demanding those, and everybody's going to shift.
Yeah, I love the bees that I get from Zach in Hawaii. They are just, you describe your bees as far as productivity. His are very similar to that. I think he's starting to try and work on the resistance a little bit, the mites. I'm not sure about that, but I absolutely love his bees, and they just rock on and just have been phenomenal the last few years. But you know,
and so here's the thing that we found: there was a misconception that in order to have resistant bees, that they're going to be spicy or they're going to be non-productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a number of commercial guys come out there to my place and say, and with that in mind, I said, why don't you go out and do some mite washes with us? Let's take a look at our breeder queens. And when they're done, they go, oh my God, was I wrong? There is no trade-off. They are often, our best breeders are often the most productive colonies and the gentlest colonies in the yard. And that's what we're breeding for. We're breeding for not only mite resist. Our mite resistance is number 3 trait. Number 1 is gentleness. Number 2 is productivity. And then of those, they gotta get the final bar of 0 mite buildup in the colony. So it's a really ruthless selection program we have, and it's slow. It takes a lot of time. We're going in our 10th year now, but we're seeing clear results. It's really worth it.
Yeah, my issue with queen rearing is just with my full-time job, the timing of everything. And when I need to be doing queens down here, it's right in the middle of our hot and heavy honey flow and the nectar flow. And this past year, I did a few queens. I didn't have a lot of success with it this year. Last year, I had more success. But when I did one round and I went back and pulled the cells out, but by the time I got the cells out, the colony was completely full of honey, the breeder. So I was just like, it's just easier for me with my time restraints just to order from other people. But I would love to do more queen raising, and I've tried. I've taken a stab at it, and I think I could get pretty good at it. But it's just the time restraints are very difficult for me in my situation. I'm just not very good at figuring that out.
Yeah, you can drive a car and not be a mechanic.
That's true. I don't mind buying queens from other people if they're quality queens. But
I'm a huge garden and orchard, but I still go to the grocery store.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Anyway,
Randy, before we wrap up your time here, I know I just want to keep an eye on the time there. Can you give us like the short and sweet? What's the word on, and what are your thoughts on Tropale Labs?
we want to avoid AAA lapse. I'm trying to get some of my stock, resistance stock, shipped over to Asia to test them to see if that resistance can confer to AAA lapse, and there's a good chance that it might, but we don't know yet. When I was in Azerbaijan a couple of years ago, the beekeepers, it was during winter, and they were complaining about all the colonies dying. They thought it was nosema. And I said, no, it's not nosema. I can tell you right now, it's not nosema. It was a mystery. And then I get home and I get a video of the guy dissecting cap brood and 20 mites coming out of the cell, the AAA lapse. So that was it. So it had spread from Russia to Azerbaijan. It's going to be hitting Europe soon. There's no way they're going to prevent it. And you can keep your colonies alive, but they're tiny colonies. They're not producing colonies. It's very tough. So we want to try to keep AAA lapse out of this country as long as we can.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know there was the story about the boat that kind of, it set off the radar for everyone. And I didn't really react like a lot of people. I just thought, well, I mean, it was 1,200 miles off the coast, didn't get to the shore. So I just thought,
we have a lot of ships coming from areas. The other one is yellow-legged hornet.
Yeah.
I don't want to say who dropped the ball, but to me, we should be the National Guard. We should be sending them to other cities. We should be sending them to Georgia to go and have a mission to identify yellow-legged hornet nests and eliminate them.
Yeah.
So, before it spreads, you guys are in an area where it will come in and it's going to ruin your beekeeping if we don't stop it.
This is different than the Asian hornets, or is it the same thing?
It's different.
It's not the what they call the murder hornet.
Or hornets, yeah.
No, this is a yellow-legged hornet or Asian hornet in Europe. I've been over in France. I've been in England, and it's a disaster. So anywhere where it is fairly humid weather, its range can expand. So you guys.
Yeah, we have. I guess we have hornets down here, but it's not that, I don't think. But we do have.
No, this one hovers outside the hives. It picks off in returning foragers, and then in the fall, in France, out in the apiaries, they have buckets of sugar syrup that are 4 inches of wasps floating on the top of each one, just trying to control the wasps. There's just so many. Just the bees can't fly out of the hive because they just get eaten by the wasps.
Yeah. I sat in on a talk. I've been going through the University of Florida Master Beekeeper program, and Jamie Ellis did a talk one evening, and it was for those that are going through their programs, and his talk was on yellow-legged hornet. So it was, oh gosh, I mean, that had to have been 9 or so months ago. It's been a little while ago.
Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, we should be calling out the National Guard and going full scale and see if we can eradicate it from Georgia before it spreads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, with that note, I got to get going here.
Yes, sir.
Good talking to you guys.
Andy, thank you again.
You bet. Talk to you again.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. It was great.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, man.
Could talk for hours.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hours and hours. Before I get sidetracked in my thoughts, I was sent a message from none other than Tom Sosman. And I want to pull up and just share. Let me see here. This right here. I don't know how well those are going to be able to see it, but it is the Hives for Heroes. I guess you can kind of see it on there. It's the 3rd annual Hives for Heroes raffle that they have. I mean, there is a slew of items on there. The raffle is going to take place. Let me see here. Let me get this right. If I get this wrong, Melissa is going to have my hide. So I'll just tell her that Tom sent me the wrong information. But it's going to be on Joey's chat December 20th. So those are all of the different items that are in the raffle, prize descriptions and things on there. If you have any questions on this, just reach out to Tom, Melissa. I'm sure Joey probably knows some information as well, but just wanted to share that out. That way those guys get a little bit more exposure on that raffle there. So I'm going to have to jump into that. So definitely.
Yeah, that was a great chat. Just some people just have just an incredible knowledge, and he's put in the work. You know, he's done the research, he's taken the time. But man,
Yeah,
I learned some things tonight for sure, and
yeah,
it was so good.
Yeah, I know. I just every time we talk to him, I leave and I'm just like, man, my brain is just spinning, you know?
But it's applied science. You know, he
Yeah.
he gets in the weeds, and he loves to get in the weeds, but then he's able to consolidate it in a way that we can utilize that information. And I need to spend some time on his website, but I know he's got all kinds of graphs, and there's things you can plug in for he has plug-in things where you can go plug it in to see. He's done a lot of work to be able to make, if we can just spend a little time on his website, there's so much to learn and be able to help our operation instead of having to figure it out, right? Why reinvent the wheel when he's got all the technology, the plug-in stuff and all the information on his website to really help us. And so, anyway, yeah, I've seen some of his stuff, DC. I haven't been on his site much, but I do know there's some incredible stuff there. I feel like I'm always trying to chase my tail. I'm always trying to keep my head above water. I just don't spend as much time actually researching and doing things like that that I probably should. I'm just not a super, I don't know what I am. I'm right brained more, I guess, most of the time. So, anyway, I'm not super left brained and detail oriented like I probably should be, but many people are. And somehow though, in my crazy way of doing things, I still manage to usually get a few colonies through the winter and make a little bit of honey. So I might not be doing everything right, but I guess I'm doing a few things right. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see how they get through this year. Every year I worry about it. My wife jokes with me because, every year I worry about my bees surviving winter. And then when they do, enough of them to get through, then I worry, is there going to be a good honey crop? Or going to make honey this year? And it'll be, sometimes it'll be like April and then they're not doing much. And I'll be thinking, oh man, not going to have any honey this year. And then all of a sudden the tallow hits and I end up having some honey. I can only think of 1 year where it really here did not produce. And that was, I guess, 2023 must have been the year. And we only got about half of what we had gotten the previous year. And I ran out of honey and it was horrible. It was a nightmare for me, but we just had a bad year. Just didn't have a lot of stuff coming in. And sometimes that happens, I guess. But anyway, it's, we're kind of getting a little bit late here, but it's been fun. I do want to let people know, I've had some people reach out to me about the expo, and I had kind of decided not to go this year. We have a wedding the previous week. On January 1st, we have a wedding. My youngest, is getting married. And obviously we're going to be gearing up for that. Got a lot of things going on, a lot of stress. And I think people understand. But just today, I was just thinking about it a little bit, and I've seen all the things coming through from the expo and all the people excited to go. And I haven't 100% decided to go yet, but I think I might be going to pull the trigger on a ticket here pretty soon. So I may try to show up to the expo again this year. I was going to just kind of try and rest a little bit, but man, I look forward. I like to see all the people and get to meet everyone, and those that I've already met before and some new folks. So I'm not 100% sure I'm going to be there, but I may end up coming. So we'll see. So just a little teaser out there. Not that it matters. Like I'm nowhere, but it's a pretty good chance. My wife, I'm trying to figure out, I gotta it's late in the game. So hotel arrangements and stuff. I gotta make sure I can get all that together. But I may end up coming up there. Yeah. Stop toying with like your emotions really depend on whether or not I'm there, Jason. There's gonna be so many cool people there. I mean, I'm just small fish in the pond. So
this year though, Bruce, for Nabby, I did the same thing. I thought about it. I wasn't going to go. And then I thought, you know what? I'm not going to work a booth. I got tickets, and I actually got tickets to attend one of the microscopy labs. That's me.
Yeah.
I love that sciencey geek stuff. I mean, I bought a microscope after last year. I pinged Fred Dunn, and I'm like, Fred, I want to get a microscope. And of course, I mean, he said, oh, this brand. So I got,
Sure.
I got a microscope, but that's the stuff I love. So I'm gonna go
Yeah.
one of
I
those.
haven't gone to many of the classes in the past, and I think I'm going to try and go to some this year. I really do enjoy hanging out and meeting everybody, but I just want to kind of enjoy it more as a attendee, and also, obviously see everybody, but I'm going to I think I'm going to do more of the actual, what everybody else is doing, more than just hanging out in the
I'll tell
vendor
you what,
section.
like they've got the app that I haven't quite figured everything out on it, but like it has an agenda thing, and I already set up like I want to go. I have the same thought as you. I want to go as an attendee. I don't want to work any booth. Um, I may go over and help out at the Hive Live table just for a little bit. They pinged me and said, would you want to help out for an hour or two, just lifting stuff and that? And they've done so much stuff for me, so that's probably the only table I'm going to help out. Is I'm going to go over and help out, with Dara and them. But other than that, like I set myself up a schedule on here for certain talks that I want to hear. Pretty much Friday there's 3 that I want to catch, and then Saturday I pretty much had like the trade show and then help out with Hive Alive, and then there was the microscopy lab. But like, Friday I was going to do, listen to the speakers and things like that, but I've never been able to do that.
Yeah. We just never have. I've never had a booth I had to be at, but I've always just,
Yeah.
it's always been a great experience, but it
There.
does completely wear me out. But, we'll see. I'm probably going to just go ahead and buy a ticket and come on up there. So
There you go.
hopefully we won't have a snowstorm like last year. I barely made it out of there last year. Yeah, we're going to be in Madison, Wisconsin, the
That'll be
first
fun.
weekend of February as well. So that's what I was thinking. I mean, do I really want to go that many miles twice? But
Yeah.
I think I'm actually going to hop in the old pickup truck and just drive on up there. It'll be fun. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
But
If you do, I mean, let me know though too, if like hotel arrangements and things like that, if it's looking kind of, scarce, let me
are you
know.
going by yourself, or do you have someone you're going to be with?
No, I am. I'm going by myself. So
Okay,
I
we'll
can
talk about after. We'll talk
yeah,
about
I'll
afterwards.
message you. Yeah. So, well, what's
All right, man.
up in the next week?
For those who have, I mean, I haven't done a lot on my channel, and all of a sudden I've been bombarding the channel this week. My goal with my channel has changed a little bit. I really want to do more of an educational type situation where I kind of share ideas, teach. There will still be some vlogging videos probably, but it's going to shift a little bit from that to, I don't want to say instructional, because I don't really feel like, I'm not a master beekeeper. All of you know that. However, I've logged a lot of hours in beehives. I've seen a lot of things, and I've done a lot of talking and discussion on these chats. And I have learned a lot of things, but I'm not trying to come across as an expert as far as like a master beekeeper. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to show kind of what I've done and what works for me. Trying to take more of instead of just a Southeast Alabama approach, kind of talk about things that affect people across the globe. That's kind of my goal. And so what I did this past Saturday morning, it was just rainy, dreary. I needed to be out pulling formic acid out of my hives, but it was like 50 degrees, and it was this dreary, rainy, just day. And so, in the way my football teams did later in the day, it seemed it just didn't help anything either, with Big Y and Alabama both getting blown out. But anyway, so I got on here. It was like, I think 9 or 9:30. I can't remember what time it was in the morning. And I just did a live chat, and we talked about some beekeeping basics, just kind of my story and some different things. And I've been doing some little shorter videos, clipping it out of that and posting it every day this week. It's a lot of work to do that. But so that's kind of where I'm going with the channel. That's kind of what I'm working on now. And it's just hard to put out a content that often, but I just kind of went a little crazy with it. So hopefully those videos are enjoyable. They're pretty basic. They're nothing that there's my opinion. It's nothing. I'm not coming across as I'm the master beekeeper. This is how you have to do it type of thing. It's more like, hey, these are my thoughts and my opinions on these things from the last 12 years of experience. And so I hope to do more of those. The chats I'm going to start doing are called Let's Talk Bees. I don't have a schedule set up how often I'm going to do those, but my goal is to do a live chat, probably a couple times a month at least, and then chop those up into smaller segments that are more watchable as far as for people, just, 10 to 15-minute videos at most, and just see what happens. And so we'll go with that. And I do plan to try and develop some sort of a program or some educational materials. I don't know how to do that. I'm not sure how I'm going to find the time to do that. That's kind of where my mind has been for a while now. And then, of course, I'll still kind of keep you updated as far as what's going on in my colonies. And some of the things I want to teach and share will be out in the bee yards, but it's not going to be 100% in the bee yards. I'm going to just try to do some videos just in this setup right here. That's my thought now. It could change, but that's where I've been kind of going with this thing. And so hopefully that'll be helpful to some folks, new people, hopefully people in the chat. Hope you enjoyed that. Give me some feedback. If you go watch some of those videos, let me know what you think. And it's just a whole different style. It's kind of like the style here. It's just going to be in a studio, my guest bedroom studio here, where I do this, but it'll be just me. And every once in a while I'll bring a guest on, may have Brian on or Greg or some different people, just one-on-one to ask questions about certain topics. But just a little bit of a different approach. And I've played around with it for a while, but that's what I'm going to do. As far as the beekeeping goes, I mentioned to Randy early in the chat that I put formic on my colonies. The southbound colonies down in Appleton Farms and Slocum, I put the formic on 3 weeks ago. It should have come off by now, but it was raining this past weekend. I'm going to take it off this weekend. And then the other colonies up north, in the northern part of my bee operation, I put them on the next week. So it's been there for 2 weeks. And so I'll probably try to film a little bit of that and show you what I'm doing with them, what the bees look like, doing it this late in the year here in the South. And I hope I don't have a lot of queen issues. I really don't think I will. The temperatures have not been really hot. They've been, I think, pretty good for formic, actually a little bit on the cooler side, but not too cold. And so, but we'll see. I went ahead and took the risk and did it. Once again, anytime in any video or anything I do, I'm not recommending these things. I'm just kind of showing you what I'm doing, and then you can draw your own conclusions. So I don't want anyone blaming me for your bees dying, because I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to help you out. So hopefully that's what you guys get out of my channel. But that's what I'm doing here. We have a wedding coming up January 1st, as I mentioned before. And so we are full speed ahead right now. There's a lot of stress right now going on kind of with all that. If any of you who have either gotten married, which many of us have, or those who have had children to get married, especially girls, there's a lot of angst that goes into that. And so we're in the middle of that now, but soon we will be past that, and hopefully everything's going to work out with that marriage. I think it will. A couple of good kids. And so, but that's where we're at. Just busy holidays combined with the wedding. And then that's one reason I kind of decided not to go to the expo, but I think I'm going to go ahead and purchase a ticket. And, for $170, that's how much it is. I think, can't go wrong, and,
Yeah.
we'll talk about the arrangements when we get off here, Brian.
Okay.
How about you, man? What's going on there?
Well, not much. I mean, the bees they're still hunkered down. I did check them all. I think it was yesterday. I mean, I forget. I think it was yesterday. And they all had a heat signature. So there was only one colony out of the 16 that I did not look at, and it was the 7-frame Apame. I just didn't want to open it. But other than that, I mean, all the other ones they had nice solid heat signatures on them. The Hex Hive, they're up high, but those jokers had a third of that fondant already devoured. So they're all doing good, but that's about all I can do. Our temps, they said for the next, they showed the next 10-day forecast, and we are actually below what our norm is. So we're probably going to end up with one of the colder Decembers on record. So, but it's fine. We're not dipping real brutal cold. We're getting into some of the nights, I think we had 17, 19 in there. That's not bad. We're 20s, low 30s. I'm content with that. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
I'm
so
I'm also thinking, they've had so much food on them. I know that last year I put Hive Alive on everything all
yeah,
through the winter. Do they really need it? I'm thinking I've got plenty, so I may put some on there, but I don't know. That's something I'm trying to decide on as well. That's just 100% insurance policy. If it's on there, there's not going to be a problem with food.
right,
But do they really need it if they've got 60 pounds of honey on a hive? You know what I mean? So I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. But no, that's it. I mean, and I've been tossing out more shorts lately,
yeah,
just
that's
little
awesome.
things, and
5,000 views in like 24 hours on one of them, right? Crazy.
yeah,
And all you
I
did
did
was we're talking about the winter. Yeah, you were talking about that's amazing.
I put one out. Yeah, it's been out 26 hours now, and it's 5,600 views. And
That's
all
crazy.
it was showing the hex hive.
That's
So
great.
it was like a 29-second clip. But I probably, though, am going to, and this will even continue into next year, I probably will do one or two shorts when I film a regular video, just because that's a whole entire different audience.
Yeah.
And there are those out there that watch and they just focus on those shorts and they will never watch full length videos. So I figure when I'm there filming, how hard is it to pull out my phone and just and film a couple
Yeah.
things? It could be completely different, just showing various things. If I'm getting stung, film them stinging, But that's the direction that I think I'm going to move. But in the next week or so here, I probably won't touch them again. I mean, I don't need to. So, but I did. I see Michael in here, 21st Bees. I did order enough. I got 70 more of the deep frames coming. So my back row of 8. Eventually, once I transition all the frames over, that entire back row is all going to have infinity frames. It's all going to be in Durahive. You know, I got some supers, some frames, some medium frames ordered from Premiere yesterday as well. So just gearing up for next year. So that's all. But nothing with the bees. It's just spending money that I got, from selling honey. So that is it.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I've sold. This year was a record harvest, and we've sold well over half of our honey, I think. And the orders keep coming. And man, one thing that's really been just flying off the shelves is all my wax products, my candles, my blocks of wax, and I'm thinking I've never had issues getting rid of my wax. I mean, I've never sold much wax. I've always had wax sitting around, but I'm about to be out of wax, and so it's kind of crazy how figure out how to clean it up nice and make a really nice product out of wax, and people really love it. And so I'm like, dadgum, I'm almost out of wax. That just sucks, but
Yeah.
but if I run out, I run out. I did talk to my buddy Rusty and that I do honey with, and he still has some that is unprocessed, still in the buckets from the spring honey harvest cappings wax, and that's what I want to use as cappings wax. It's just so nice, either cappings or if you scrape burrcomb off the top of your frames when you pull your lid off. Which mine, a lot of people like to put the Reflectix on there, or they like to they don't like that burrcomb up there. And it's kind of a pain, but I actually kind of like it because I scrape it off when it's that fresh white, beautiful wax, and it makes beautiful wax as well. But yeah, Zach, I know I thought about reaching out to Tyler. I reached out to Rusty. He's going to let me have some of his, and I do want to process it myself. I've kind of got a way that I'm doing it now with my melter, my melter from Thorn, and I've got a certain temperature I like to melt it at, and it's just turned out to be just perfectly, just a beautiful color, and can still smells really good, and it's just a fresh, beautiful block of wax. And so I want to get it. Maybe Tyler has some unprocessed. Plus, it's a little. Hopefully, I can get a little cheaper that way too, and not have to pay a full price for a big block of wax and then turn around and make a little bit on it. I'd like to do a little better profit wise. Otherwise, it's not worth the effort. So we'll see. And if I just run out and can't get any more, then it'll just be next year. But I'm trying to save a few blocks just in case I want to wax some frames. But I'm down to probably 20, maybe 30 pounds, and I think we had a couple 100 pounds to start the year.
Oh wow.
Pretty close to that. So and it's been just candles and a lot of people are just buying like blocks of wax from me. You know, either the 1 pound. I have a couple, and I'll have to do a video on this maybe, but I've got these ladies at work that make like soaps and lotions and things like that, and candles, different things, and they they don't use the beeswax strictly for beeswax candles, but they'll put it in different products. You know, they'll use the wax.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out how to make the little wax beads, little tiny wax beads. But the way I do it is so labor intensive. But I finally figured out, I found these little molds, and they're probably little hexagonal shapes.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually cooked like cooking molds, but you can do 19 per pad, and they're probably about an inch in a hexagonal shape, about an inch around. Got a little design, and they're kind of cute little molds. They got little bees or honeycomb in there, and you can pour those up really quickly, and you can order those things on Amazon, and it's a little bigger than the beads, but these ladies love them because they're small enough to work with, so they don't have to try and shave wax off of a block, but they can just measure up an ounce or two, or however much they need in their products. Or if they need to break the bead in these little hexagonal shapes in half, they're small. They can do it pretty easily, probably. So I've sold quite a bit that way. But anyway, it's crazy to me how I've never sold wax to speak of before, but this year it's just been kind of been flying off the shelves, and so it's been kind of cool. My most recent orders online have been, most of them have included a fair amount of beeswax products along with it. So those pillar candles have been people really like those pillar candles I got from Man Lake.
That's good.
The hot honey I made, Brian, with my version of yours. It's not yours. I actually have less ghost pepper in it, and I put, I just kind of made my own concoction of it, but people love it. So
that's good.
Just adding that little bit of ghost pepper gave it a little bit of heat, plus the taste of the red chili pepper still in there, and they really like it. So anyway, been selling that too. So it's been crazy. I can't believe how much. Times are good. Things have been selling. So now I feel the pressure to have a good year next year, so I can provide for all my customers again, because we are, like I say, we're in December, we harvested in June, and the honey is just, that honey room is, I think we started with 185 buckets. We're down probably around 80 now left over, maybe 80 to 85 left. And so, and I'm bottling it up, selling it like crazy. So anyway, but that's for another discussion, but
yeah, anyway. I've got one other, I signed up for another market this Saturday. So I still have a little bit of honey left. And I thought, I got looking when I was at the market this past weekend, and I did good. I met right around the same that I got from it last year. So I was content with that.
That's awesome.
I was talking to some people down there, and they were like, they mentioned something about like a group where you can find local markets. And I was like, what group are these people talking about? Well, there's a Facebook group specific to this area. It's Trumbull, Mahoning County markets. And it's all the people that run all the different little markets. They mainly post on there. They don't allow a lot of like chit chat, the chatter. But it's just the organizers of the different markets. They'll post their flyers on there. And I found one, this Saturday. It's an indoor market, $40 for the market. And I thought, I mean, why not? I can sell 3 jars of honey, and I've made back the $40, So I'm going to do it, see if I can't get a little bit more money. But yeah, that'll be about the only thing that I do with bees, selling honey this Saturday from 11 to 4.
Yeah, man, it's so much fun. It's really cool to see the the fruits of your labors, the fruits of the bees' labors. Really, that's one of the cool things. And like a lot of people just don't like doing the honey part of it, but that's really my favorite, part of it. I do enjoy the beekeeping, obviously, but as far as selling bees, that to me seems like more stress than it's worth. And the pollination is kind of a hassle.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy the whole process of the honey. I love seeing the bees put the honey in the hives. I love pulling it. It's hard work, but I just enjoy it. Seeing the, harvest the honey, And I love being able to provide the customers a good product. And so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, we could talk on and on all night,
Good
Brian.
stuff.
But
Yeah. Well, when we wrap this up tonight, it's going to be basic. Whose channel are we on next week?
I don't know. We need to talk to Greg about that.
Probably, yeah.
It would be me in the natural order of time, things after you, but we skip Greg tonight, so we'll see what Greg wants to do. But it'll be on. If we assuming we do it, which I imagine we will.
Yeah.
It'll be on mine or Greg's channel more than likely.
Sounds good. Well,
all right, man.
Appreciate you all watching, and I guess we'll have to wait until we don't even know where it's going to be next week. So stay tuned, folks. But
all right,
you guys watching, and we'll see you all next week. See y'all.